My name's Leah, I'm 32, and I don't know when exactly I started lying to myself. Maybe it was somewhere between the second I love you that didn't feel like it landed, or the night he turned his back before I finished my sentence. Either way, I've been sitting on this story like a splinter under my skin, small, but sharp enough that I can't stop touching it. The title makes it sound like some sort of raunchy secret. Like I waltzed into someone else's life and seduced my way into a mess. But the truth's quieter than that. More painful in its stillness. I didn't go looking for anything. I didn't want to find it, either. It started simple, I needed a place to stay. My apartment lease had ended, my boyfriend Matt and I had been off, and I wasn't ready to talk about it. Not even with him. So when Nate, my college buddy, offered his spare room while I figured things out, I took it. No drama. No subtext. Until I met his mom, Claire. But I'll get to her later. Back to Matt, he used to make me laugh so hard I couldn't breathe. The kind of laughter that makes you feel lighter. Our first year together was messy and magical. We cooked barefoot, made out in the kitchen, texted each other poems and gifts that only made sense at 2 a.m. He touched me like he saw me, not just my body, but all the corners I'd learned to hide from the world. We used to kiss without a reason. We used to want each other. But somewhere along the way, the wanting got replaced by remembering. Remembering how we used to be, trying to recreate it like a performance, but missing the original spark. Like two actors who once loved the play, but now can't stand each other backstage. Matt still kissed me, but now it was rushed, obligatory, like checking a box. Sometimes his lips would land on mine, and I'd instinctively lean in, hoping. And then feel it, that flicker of absence behind his eyes. Like he was already somewhere else. We'd cuddle on the couch, my head on his shoulder, his hand on my thigh, but it felt like a placeholder, a public gesture more than a private moment. There was this night, maybe 3 months ago. I remember it because it was raining and I had that heavy, wet feeling in my chest. We were watching some crime show we used to binge religiously. I reached for his hand. He let me take it, but he didn't squeeze back. He didn't even look away from the screen. And I remember staring at his profile, that familiar, handsome jawline, the birthmark just beneath his ear, and feeling like I was watching a stranger wear my boyfriend's skin. My throat closed around something I didn't know how to name yet. I pulled my hand away quietly. He didn't notice. We didn't fight, not really. We just faded. That's what people don't warn you about. Sometimes, it's not betrayal or abuse or a giant rupture that ends a relationship. Sometimes it's just a slow withdrawal. A gradual dimming of the light you once shared. Like someone turning down a dimmer switch 1 degree at a time until you forget what the room looked like when it was bright. I kept trying, though. I wore the perfume he used to love. I initiated sex even when I didn't feel wanted, just to feel something. He'd go along with it, kind, distracted, maybe even guilty. And afterward, we'd lie there, naked and wordless, and I'd stare at the ceiling thinking, is this all it is now? The exact moment I knew something had changed. We were brushing our teeth. That's it. Just an ordinary night. We stood side by side at the sink. He was scrolling his phone while brushing. I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror, my reflection next to his. And I looked, tired. Small. Like someone who had shrunk herself to stay close to someone who didn't even notice. And I realized, I don't feel like me when I'm with him anymore. And that scared the hell out of me. So when I packed a bag to stay at Nate's for a while, I told myself it was just temporary. Just space. But I had no idea what kind of space I was about to step into. Or what his mother would whisper to me that would shake everything loose. I'd been at Nate's place for a week when Matt finally texted, "Miss you. Wanna come home?" 2 days later, he showed up with my favorite almond croissants from that overpriced cafe near the clinic he worked at. Matt's an ER nurse, calm under pressure, always moving, always on. People call him a hero, and maybe he is. But I was beginning to wonder what it meant when the man who saves lives for a living couldn't figure out how to see mine. He stood at the door with that lopsided grin he knew I loved. "Figured you'd be sick of couch cushions and gamer chairs by now," he joked. I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. Nate was out for the weekend. Claire was upstairs doing yoga or watering her hanging plants or writing in her ever-present leather journal. She never intruded, but somehow always noticed. She'd glance at me for an extra second too long, as if she could see something Matt never tried to. I let him in. He kissed me on the cheek. Then the mouth. Then I tried to deepen it. I pulled back gently. "You okay?" he asked, trying to wrap his arms around my waist. "Yeah," I said. I wasn't. He leaned in, trying to turn the kiss into something more. "Missed you," he murmured into my neck. I tilted my head slightly, letting him touch but not feel me. He didn't notice the stiffness in my spine, the way my fingers curled away instead of toward him. Or maybe he did and just didn't want to deal with it. "Let's just talk," I said. He sighed, pulled back, raking his hand through his hair like he did when he was annoyed. "Babe, we've been talking." Or, well, not talking. What else is there to say? I miss you. I love you. You're here. Let's just reconnect. And I know he meant it. In his mind, this was love, showing up with pastries, reaching for my body, trying to create closeness through physical touch. But I needed something slower. Something harder. I needed him to ask how I'd been feeling. Not just if I was okay, but what wasn't. I needed him to stop trying to make everything better with sex or smiles or soft kisses that didn't go anywhere anymore. I needed him to sit in the dark with me instead of rushing toward the light. We sat on Nate's couch, him scrolling through memes, trying to make me laugh. I let out a hollow chuckle. He rested his head in my lap, looking up at me like a boy who hadn't learned that charm isn't a cure. I played with his hair because I still loved him, or maybe because I remembered loving him, and the memory still held weight. "I feel like you only touch me when you want something," I said, so softly I wasn't sure I'd actually said it aloud. He lifted his head. "What?" "I mean, it's like, if I pull away, you get annoyed. But when I really need you, like emotionally, like really need you, it's like I don't exist. I feel invisible unless I'm naked or smiling." His face changed, not angry, not sad, just blank. That numb, washed-out look he got whenever something made him uncomfortable. "That's not fair, Leah," he said. "I'm trying. I'm here. I brought your favorite stupid pastry. I want you. I'm touching you because I love you. What else am I supposed to do?" I didn't have an easy answer. That was the worst part. It wasn't about grand gestures or the pastry or the sex. It was about presence. Real presence. The kind where someone sees the storm behind your smile and doesn't flinch. He stood up and paced. "You always say I'm not getting it, but you don't tell me how to fix it." "I don't want to be fixed," I said, quieter now. "I want to be heard." Silence ballooned between us. He picked up his keys and said, "Call me when you're ready to stop punishing me for not being perfect." He walked out. The door clicked shut like a final punctuation mark. Upstairs, a floorboard creaked. I looked up. Caught Claire's shadow just behind the railing. She didn't speak, not yet. But I swear, her silence wrapped around me like a question. And I wasn't ready for the answer. Matt came back 2 days later like nothing happened. He let himself in with the key I hadn't asked him to return yet and dropped his duffel by the door with a practiced grunt. I was on the couch in Nate's hoodie, watching a rerun of some home renovation show I wasn't even absorbing. "Hey," he said, walking over to press a kiss to my temple. His stubble scraped lightly across my skin. I didn't move. I didn't even lean in. But I didn't pull away either, which somehow felt worse. He plopped down beside me and stretched his arm across the back of the couch. "Look, I know the other night got tense. I said some shit I shouldn't have. I was defensive. I get it. I nodded. Okay. He watched me for a beat, searching. We're good. I forced a smile. Sure. His hand slid behind my neck, warm and familiar. He pulled me in for a kiss, slow, like he was trying to tell me something he couldn't say out loud. His lips moved with a tenderness that used to unravel me. Now it just made me feel trapped. I kissed him back, lightly, enough to be polite, but my chest was tight, my stomach twisting with a quiet, aching guilt. I wanted this. I used to. When his tongue brushed mine, something in me went rigid. I pulled back quickly, pretending to cough. He looked at me sideways. You okay? Yeah. Just, dry throat. He laughed. Need some water? Or something else? There was a tease in his voice. Light, harmless, but it landed wrong. I stood up. I'm fine. He followed me into the kitchen, his hand grazing the small of my back. I flinched, just a little, and tried to make it look like I'd just shifted my weight. He didn't notice. Or maybe he did and didn't want to deal with it. You're tense, he said, stepping behind me while I filled a glass at the sink. Let me help. His hand slid around my waist, slow and deliberate. He kissed the back of my neck. Matt, I said, voice low. What? He murmured into my skin, still holding me. I'm not there. Right now. He pulled back just enough to look at me. Not there, like, you don't want to, or not there like you're mad? I turned off the faucet and held the glass between us like a shield. Just not there. I'm tired. He stepped back, his jaw tightening just slightly. It's been a week, Leah. I mean, I've been patient, but I didn't ask you to wait, I snapped. Then I softened. I just need space. A little more time. His hands dropped to his sides. Okay, he said, flat. I'll just go jerk off in Nate's bathroom, then. I blinked. Jesus, Matt. He held up his hands. Sorry. That was a joke. Bad one. I nodded, but my stomach was knotted again, and I couldn't quite look him in the eye. He stepped forward again, this time just reaching out to cup my face. It was gentle. Almost sweet. His thumb brushed my cheekbone. But it felt like a script. Like he was playing the part of a loving boyfriend and I was the actress who'd forgotten her lines. I didn't lean into it. I didn't smile. I just stood there, letting him touch me like a ghost. His hand dropped. We both stared at the floor for a long moment. Silence pressed in between us, heavy and suffocating. And in the quiet of that kitchen, with the fridge humming and the distant sound of Claire's wind chimes on the porch, I couldn't stop the thought that clawed its way up from my gut. Why does everything have to turn into sex? It happened at dinner. Claire had made roasted eggplant lasagna with a side salad, and I'd offered to set the table because my hands needed something to do. Matt had come by again that evening, fresh from work, wearing that navy blue scrub top that always smelled faintly of antiseptic and bergamot. We were all pretending to be normal. Me, trying not to shake. Him, trying too hard to be charming. Claire, watching everything with those quiet, knowing eyes. Matt was halfway through a story about a patient who had come in with a pair of scissors lodged in his thigh. He was animated, smiling, eyes darting between Claire and me like he was putting on a show. So, the guy's totally calm, like, hey, doc, you mind getting this out? I've got a date in an hour. He laughed. Wild, right? Claire smiled politely. I forced a small laugh, even though I hadn't heard most of it. Then he reached for my hand under the table, just a quick squeeze. But it was too much. Too familiar. Too seen in the wrong way. I froze. He noticed. His smile faltered. And that's when it cracked. You know, I said, putting my fork down carefully, it's not normal to pretend everything's fine just because you brought me a croissant. Matt blinked. What? I'm just saying, you keep showing up like this as a rom-com where we'll have one dramatic kiss and suddenly I'll remember why I fell in love with you. He frowned. I'm just trying to be here. With you. Isn't that what you said you wanted? No. I said I wanted to be heard. And every time you come over, it's like you're trying to shortcut through my body to get there. The words came out sharp. Claire sat perfectly still, but something in her expression softened, like she'd seen this before. Lived it. Matt dropped his fork. What the hell does that mean, Leah? It means I feel like I'm suffocating every time you touch me. His mouth opened. Closed. Wow. Claire stood. I'll give you two a moment. No, please, I said too quickly. Stay. You've seen enough. Why not stay for the encore? Matt pushed back from the table. Okay, what are we even doing anymore? You don't want me to come. You don't want me to leave. You say you want emotional intimacy, but when I try to connect, you shut me out. What am I supposed to do, read your mind? You don't listen, Matt. My voice broke, louder than I meant. You touch. You grab, you kiss, you want. But when was the last time you asked me how I'm doing and actually meant it? He looked genuinely hurt now. You think I don't care? I think, I said, breath hitching, that you care about the version of me that didn't start pulling away. Silence. Heavy. Total. Claire cleared her throat quietly. Sometimes, she said gently, we grieve the person we used to be, not just the people we've lost. Matt stared at her, then back at me. Is this about us? Or is it about something else? He asked, quieter now. Because I'm trying, Leah. I really am. And just like that, the anger folded in on itself. The weight of what I'd said hit me like a cold wave. My face burned with shame. I looked down at my plate, the lasagna untouched, my appetite gone. I felt like a glass that had shattered in a silent room. I'm sorry, I whispered, tears pricking behind my eyes. I didn't mean to make a scene. Matt didn't speak. I watched him, trying to read his silence, but all I saw was exhaustion. Not just from the shift he'd worked, but from me. From us. Claire stood again, walked slowly to the kitchen, and left us in the heavy pause of our broken moment. And I thought of the first night I'd arrived here, duffel bag in hand, Nate gone for the weekend, Claire welcoming me in with a calm, maternal warmth I hadn't realized I needed. She'd hugged me, soft and brief, and whispered in my ear like it was a secret. You can stop pretending here. At the time, I hadn't understood what she meant. Now I did. And it terrified me. The days blurred. Matt stopped coming by. At first, it was a day. Then two. Then a full week without a text. I tried not to notice. I told myself it was what I wanted, space, silence, time. But space quickly turned into emptiness. And silence, once comforting, became suffocating. I found myself scrolling our old messages late at night, reading the dumb jokes he used to send me during lunch breaks. Photos of our dog, Sophie, in sunglasses. Selfies and scrubs with his hair a mess. I'd laugh, quietly, and then the guilt would settle like sediment in my chest. Claire never asked what happened. She gave me soft glances and a wide berth. Sometimes she'd hand me a cup of tea without a word and just sit beside me while we watched the leaves shift from green to gold outside her window. It was a Saturday morning when I saw him again. I'd gone to pick up a box of my winter clothes from our apartment. I still had the key. I'd texted ahead, unsure if he'd answer. He didn't, but I went anyway. When I opened the door, he was there, standing in the kitchen, making coffee like it was just another morning. He didn't look surprised to see me. Just tired. Hey, he said, voice low. Hey. We stood there, facing each other like two people separated by more than the breakfast bar between us. He looked older, or maybe just worn out. His shoulders slumped a little more. His face a little more hollow. There was a plate on the counter with 2 slices of toast, one with strawberry jam. My favorite. He hadn't eaten it yet. I pointed. Are you expecting someone? He glanced at it, then back at me. Habit. I looked down. Right. A silence fell. Thick. Familiar. He poured a second mug of coffee and pushed it toward me without a word. I wrapped my hands around the warmth and stared into the dark swirl inside, unsure how to begin. I haven't been okay, I finally said. He nodded slowly. Me either. There was something so quietly honest about his admission that it cut through me. Not angry. Not accusing. Just true. I looked at him again, really looked. At the lines I hadn't noticed forming near his mouth, the way he was fidgeting with his thumb like he used to when we first started dating, and he wasn't sure where he stood with me. I miss you, I whispered. He didn't smile. Didn't soften. Just said, then why does it feel like you hate me? I opened my mouth. I closed it. My chest ached. I don't, I said. I don't hate you, Matt. I stopped knowing how to be near you without losing myself. His eyes flicked down. His voice cracked just slightly. I never asked you to lose anything. But I did, I said. I stopped saying what I needed. And when I did, it came out sideways. In silence. In anger. He nodded again. Yeah. I felt it. There it was. His sadness. Not loud or dramatic. Just real. He was hurting, too. Maybe he had been for longer than I'd realized. I sipped the coffee. It tasted like home. We stood there for what felt like a long time. Not touching. Not crying. Just there. And in that moment, I realized something important. Loving someone doesn't always mean staying. But it might mean trying one last, honest time. I don't know what this means, I said softly, but if you still want to try, I'm willing to start over. Not going back. Just start different. He exhaled, like something loosened inside him. Okay, he said. Yeah. Let's start there. He stayed for an hour. We didn't dissect the past. We didn't try to salvage every broken piece. We just sat, him on the couch, me in the chair, with a quiet that felt almost like peace. The apartment buzzed with familiar sounds, the hum of the fridge, the distant traffic, the echo of a life we used to live. At one point, he dozed off. Head tilted back, mouth slightly open, one arm draped over the back cushion like he belonged there. And for a moment, I let myself believe maybe he still did. I walked over quietly, wrapped the blanket from the chair around his shoulders. He stirred, barely. Then I sat beside him, not close enough to touch, but near enough to feel the warmth of him. He opened one eye. You always did that. What? Tuck me in like I was something breakable. I looked down, a smile trying and failing to hold. You were, I said. I just didn't know I was, too. He nodded, slow, tired. His hand reached out, fingers brushing mine. Just once. I don't think I can go back, he whispered. I'm not asking you to. He exhaled. I wanted to be everything for you. And you were, I said gently. Just not the thing I needed most. We sat there, suspended in that fragile, final kind of love, the kind that knows it didn't fail because it was weak, but because it had run out of road. He stood and pulled me into a hug. No words. No promises. Just two people who had once loved each other so much it burned, holding on to what little warmth was left. He kissed the top of my head. And then he left. Not angrily. Not suddenly. Just, quietly. I stood at the window and watched him walk down the street until he turned the corner and was gone. Claire came downstairs a few minutes later, her robe trailing behind her. He left? I nodded. She said nothing, just came and stood beside me, her presence calm and steady. After a long silence, I whispered, "He tried." "I know," she said. "So did you." The room felt big again. Too big for just one heart to echo through. But something about the emptiness didn't scare me anymore. It felt like a possibility. Like breath. That night, I made tea and sat by the window with the blanket still carrying his warmth. I thought about love, how it changes, how it slips through fingers even when you grip hard. And I thought about that first night, when Claire whispered, "You can stop pretending here." She had meant it. And now, finally, I understood how to begin. Not by holding on. But by letting go. You know, I used to think love was something you fought to keep. Like a house in a storm, you board the windows, reinforce the doors, huddle together and wait it out. But nobody tells you what to do when the storm's already inside. When the person you love doesn't feel like home anymore, and worse, when you don't feel like yourself around them. I'm Leah. I'm 34. And I've spent most of my adult life convincing myself that being chosen was the same as being known. Matt. Matt loved me in the only way he knew how. He filled our days with touch, with routines, with acts of service, with the comfort of familiarity. And in the beginning, that was enough. Hell, it was beautiful. It was soft kisses in the kitchen and his hand on my thigh when we watched movies, like he just needed to know I was there. But over time, something shifted. Not all at once, that's the part that makes it so hard to catch. Love doesn't usually end with a slammed door or a single betrayal. Sometimes it dies in the silence between sentences. In the way your body stops leaning in and starts bracing. I don't blame him for not noticing. I didn't even notice at first. I just kept folding myself smaller, trying not to need so much. Telling myself I was just tired, or just hormonal, or just going through something. But the truth is, I was lonely. In a relationship. With someone who slept beside me every night and couldn't see that I was slipping. That's what nobody talks about, the grief of emotional disconnect. You stop being touched and start being handled. You stop talking and start translating. Everything feels like a transaction. A favor. A debt. And maybe the cruelest part is, sometimes, even when it hurts, you still want them. You want their hand on your back, but only if they mean it. You want the kiss, but not the obligation. You want to be wanted, but not just physically. You want to be understood. I didn't leave Matt because he was cruel. I left because I started to disappear, and he didn't notice until I was already gone. And look, this isn't a story about the villainy of men or the martyrdom of women. This is a story about what happens when we stop asking each other what we really need, when we assume, project, or just hope love will carry itself. What I've learned, painfully, honestly, is that desire without intimacy feels hollow. And intimacy without truth becomes performance. You can have sex every night and still starve. You can say I love you every morning and still feel unseen. Now, I'm learning how to take up space again. I'm learning that boundaries aren't walls, they're invitations. To meet me where I am. To listen before touching. To ask before assuming. And someday, maybe not soon, maybe not with him, I want a love that feels like rest, not labor. One that invites my whole self, even the messy, complicated, sometimes unlovable parts. A love that sees me and stays, not because it's easy, but because it's real. Matt was my first safe place. And maybe that's why it hurt so much when it stopped feeling safe. But I'll never regret the years we shared, only the parts of myself I left behind trying to make us work. I'm not bitter. Just, awake now. So if you're listening, and you're in that place where the kiss feels off, and the hug feels heavy, and your body starts whispering what your mind won't admit, please. Listen. Love shouldn't feel like disappearing. You're allowed to want more. You're allowed to stay, if it can grow. And you're allowed to leave, if you can't find your way back. I did. And for the first time in a long, long time, I finally feel whole.